Hey everyone, hope everyone is good. Can everyone hear me before I get started? Good morning, Ananya. How are you? Everything's good. I want to make sure, can you all hear me? I think you can. It's always good to just triple check. Can you all hear me? All right, Connor. What's up, brother? I miss Bali. We got matching t-shirts. Ananya, you can't hear me? Triple check. The microphone is definitely working. Testing one. If Connor can hear me, then definitely the audio is working. Are you on mute, Anya, maybe? The speakers? Ah, okay. Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, hope everyone is good and doing well. I missed you all. It was nice to... Hi, Agnes. It's nice to see everyone. Let me get everything up here. Okay. So, a lot to go through today. So I want to make sure we have organized here. About KERO. Yeah. I look fresh. Thank you, brother. I just showered and shaved, so I should look good. I should look clean. Appreciate it. All right, so I think we can get started now. So a lot of you have been asking me for my thoughts on the market and what I feel. And at a high level, honestly, my perspective has not changed. I feel like many of my targets have already been hit, and I'm patiently waiting for the rest of the target ratios to get hit. So for example, at a really high level, if I had to summarize it in like one or two sentences, I do not feel that the altcoin capitulation is finished yet. I don't think that process of flushing out all the extra fluff in the market has concluded. I think we're still in the midst of the later stages, like probably sixth or seventh inning, I would say at this point. Like, because I don't feel like Bitcoin dominance has reached my target of around 60 to 65%. I've marked that. I've literally been tracking this for 2 years at this point, and we are very, very close to approaching my target zone of around 60 to 65. And the reason this is so important, I want to make sure everyone understands this, is that the market itself is still suffering from some excess greed, and you can really just quickly determine this by looking at this one metric, right? This one metric alone encapsulates the market health in my eyes. So when the market's extremely greedy, you see market dominance being low, like 40% and below, right? That's what you're seeing here. And whenever you're seeing the market being too conservative and too risk averse and avoiding any type of speculative risky assets, then you see Bitcoin dominance being essentially 60 to 80%. I don't think we're going to reapproach, the levels of 73 or 75 or all the way up to 95%, which is what it was back in 2017. I think we're very likely going to reapproach 60+%, and there's definitely a probability of it hitting like 60 to 65%. And at that point, I would feel would be a very good time to rotate some of that capital into speculative altcoins. And that's been my plan all along. I feel like I've done a good job of communicating that, and I've done my best to try to set the expectations that I am not going to go and try to set the time period and try to predict when I think the market's going to, reach that point where I feel like altcoins have truly been flushed out. I feel like we're almost there. We're not there yet. So Bitcoin dominance is one metric I like to look at, and we're not there yet. Another metric that I like to look at is the harbinger of all altcoins, and that's really ETH BTC. So for me, what I'm looking for is I really would like to have this final flush out. What ends up happening around the tail end of the altcoin capitulation, right? So it's when liquidations are happening, where you start having people over leveraging themselves, taking too much risk, much more than they can possibly absorb. And what ends up happening is Ethereum just starts to continue its decline and underperforming Bitcoin. And the target zone that I set, again, 2 years ago, was Ethereum Bitcoin between 0.035 to 0.045. We've already broken below 0.045, and we've even flirted with going below 0.04. So that means Ethereum's market cap is 4% of Bitcoin's market cap. And my bottom target was 0.035, but I'm already satisfied. I'm mostly satisfied with this. I still feel like we're going to go down below 4. And when that happens, I think this is the very good time to look at having more capital and more exposure to altcoins, right? And we're just not there yet, So those are two metrics that I feel have not satisfied my conditions, right? They have not satisfied my standard yet. And then another thing is when I look at Bitcoin dominance, excluding stablecoins, right? This is even more important than the first metric. I still expect this to go up to 65%. We're at 62. I still would like for this to hit 65%. My target was, 62 and above, and it was hit right on the money. And it's just confirming what we know now, which is there's a lot more stability and confidence in the long-term, durability and sustainability of Bitcoin as an asset than the rest of altcoins, right? And I really would like for this metric itself to go higher, to go to 65 plus, before I'm even more interested in altcoins. And I'm talking about fundamentally strong, intrinsically valued altcoins. So layer 1 blockchains, layer 2 blockchains, layer 3 blockchains, all the coins that are on my watch list that I've spoken about. And there's a reason I haven't really posted fundamentally strong projects in the new channel that we created for project analysis. It's because I just don't think this is the time to be buying these, even though I love these projects, right? Like Everclear and Octopus Network and Chainflip and GameFi and Subquery Network, right? And I'll go through some of these. I don't think the time has come yet to have capital deployed to these projects, even though many of them have market caps of less than 5 million, some less than 3, almost all are less than 10, because they just continue to bleed, right? They continue to not find any form of support. Some of them are down like 40%. Some of them are down 30%. And there's some that I really believe in, like, IX Swap. I do believe in it. I believe in Taki Games. I believe in Rubik as a multi-chain bridge. These are coins that I really believe in, but they're all down 95% in the last 90 days. So why would I be trying to catch a falling knife and taking a risk that I don't think is commensurate with the value that it could potentially provide at this point, in this current stage of the market cycle? In the future, in 1 or 2 months, I would be much more interested in them. Okay, so that's my view on those 3 metrics. Another metric that I'm looking at that I'm still not satisfied with, but is very much moving along to my target, is the relationship between altcoins and Bitcoin, excluding some of the noise of stablecoins, right? So that's really the smaller cap altcoins, that how are they performing relative to Bitcoin, right? So I would consider these more like medium to large cap, okay? And ideally what ends up happening is you really want this to collapse down below a multi-month, potentially multi-year support, which was around 0.42, and it's finally started to collapse, right? It started to finally collapse below it. And now we're just trying to find support. And my expectation is that we're probably going to find support maybe around 0.032 to maybe 0.035, potentially even below that. But that would be my expectation, is that we really need this metric to go down further, right? Because it's hit the target zone, which is good, but I don't feel like the damage is sufficiently done, right? I don't feel like the purge, right? That's what I call it. I call it the great purge of altcoins. I don't feel like that is has reached its full saturation point, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Um, and and then, and it's the same thing with these other metrics where I remove USDC and USDT. So I remove more and more of the stablecoin noise. It's the same exact, scenario, right? Is I don't feel like these metrics have really met my expectation. Another very important metric that I track is stablecoin dominance, right? So I've mentioned this and I've shared this. My target from a long time ago has been around 9 to 11%. And what this means is how much capital are investors in crypto setting aside in stablecoins? Why is this important? Because typically people flee to the safety of Bitcoin and to the safety of stablecoins, right? That's how they consider crypto as a reserve asset, right? And now they're shifting more and more away from Bitcoin into stablecoins as stablecoins become more regulated, insured, and licensed, and they're becoming a lot more collateralized and over collateralized and becoming more of a legitimate force of money, right? So that's why I'm spending so much time focusing on stablecoins, both including and excluding them, to make sure that I can have like an accurate picture on how I view the market. Now, why I'm looking at this zone. In the past, historically, there's been a huge amount of resistance around 11% to 15%. I don't feel we're at a point where we're going to hit 15% again, because that usually happens around the absolute bottom of Bitcoin. So that happened around when Bitcoin was at 15,500 and we were buying at 15,800, right? And that's the time to really look to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of accumulating Bitcoin. And right now, when we're in a mid-cycle bull, which is exactly where we really have been since October or so, I believe that we're now, at the final stages of cleaning out some of that extra fluff that we've gained through this mid-cycle bull. So Rania is asking, are we still in the bull market? I'll go through that. But this is all my points are essentially converging to the main thesis that that I've stood firm in terms of my view on the market, and I feel very confident in how I see the market. Right, I was very clear that the top was in March, and I didn't know how long the flush out is going to take, but my general expectation was that things would start turning around in October, and I still stand by that. I still believe that by mid to late October, we should hopefully have hit a bottom, but maybe it takes longer. Maybe it goes into November and December. I'm not going to try to predict time periods, but I am going to try to predict ratios, right? So these custom ratios that I've created are the ones that have never failed me. They've always helped me guide how I view and how I navigate the market and how I make decisions in terms of how aggressive I want to be in terms of taking profit, how aggressive I want to be in terms of deploying capital to positions. So these are very important things for me. So that's another very critical metric for me. I really would like for stable coins to dominance to break out of this upwards trend and then finally hit around my target zone of around 9 to 11%. Otherwise, we're just going to keep bouncing around, and if we keep bouncing around, then we're just going to have like a mini altcoin, mini altcoin like booms for like a few days, a week or two, and then it'll crash, and then more and more capital will rotate into stable coins and into Bitcoin, right? And what we really do need for many of these targets to hit is for Ethereum to collapse down, which it has, and we really need Solana to collapse down, which it's in the process of doing. So we really need, though, the valuation from those market caps to rotate into the valuation of the Bitcoin market caps. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's really the fastest way for Bitcoin dominance to reach my target zone is for the top 10 crypto market caps to go down and for that capital to shift into stablecoins and to shift into Bitcoin, right? And that's typically what happens with all asset classes is when you're on the extreme end of high risk, right? You're on the extreme end of the spectrum of high risk assets. When people are fleeing to safety, they want to shift the capital into lower risk assets, and lower risk assets in this particular class is Bitcoin, right? And people know that. People believe in the longevity of Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is still at 57.8. Right? Think about that. Like that's people are walking around talking like Bitcoin is, down 95%. And I've been there when it was down 90%. And people are literally sounding like that's the case because they're over indexed on altcoin. That's okay. But I don't think that this is the time to, if you're down like 95% and you still believe in the merits of the project and you believe in the merits of what they're doing and you believe in the ambitions of the team, you believe in their track record, you believe that they're trying to solve a real problem, I don't think I would just be panic selling at this point. I think the opportunity to sell and protect your assets in many cases is gone, and that's okay, right? I think, and then we'll go through many of those projects. But so those are four very important metrics I track. Another very important metric I track to just gauge the health of the market, and this hopefully helps you see whether or not are we growing as an asset class or are we shrinking as an asset class, right? So for me, I like to be able to have new capital be injected into the sector. I want to have new cash come into crypto. And the fastest and simplest way of being able to do that is to deposit cash, like fiat currency, so US dollars, Canadian dollars, British pounds, euros, Japanese yen, Chinese yuan, Australian dollars, have those basket of currencies being deposited into crypto in the form of stablecoins, and then stablecoins are issued in return, right? And then all of that is tracked with this one metric. So this one metric tracks, I would say, 96% of that one condition that I really would like to, and I really like this rising. So every prior boom, you really need this metric to rise, right? And whenever it starts to just its growth starts stagnating and it starts moving sideways, then you need to be extremely careful, right? And that's what's happened every single time. So, and I'll show you an example. So around here, right, in September, things started stabilizing, and that's not good for us, right? Things started stabilizing, and that's when the altcoin crash really happened, and that's why October, November, December of like 2020 was starting to flip a lot more bullish towards Bitcoin, but that was around election season. And but September is when things started like tapering off. And then in October, November, things started finally recovering with Bitcoin, but altcoins had their final purge here. And then the same thing exactly happened again back in May when you had a top, right? So that was the first top back in like May, June, July 2021. And then the same thing happened when you go to right here. So this is what happened back in 2022. So this was the whole FTX. This is prior to the FTX debacle. This is the Three Arrows Capital crash, right? And this all happened in like late May, June, and the whole Luna and all of the non-collateralized, decentralized stablecoin experiments that all completely collapsed and just everything imploded and value crashed to zero and the peg was lost and it was unbelievable. So this was the final purge, right? So I would say where we are now is a lot healthier than back then. Right? I don't think there's any comparison whatsoever because it's continuing to grow, right? But as you saw, again, when I said March, where I was feeling the top was, this stablecoin issuance and the dominance of stablecoins continued to rise. But then back in April, this is really when altcoins started going down like 90, 95, 98, many 99%. And this is exactly the same conditions. So these are the conditions I like to have met. So I feel like this condition has been met. I feel like this particular metric, I feel like has reached my target. I don't really need to, focus on this anymore, other than the main points that I've looked at, right? And then there's other metrics that I like to focus on too, which is like others BTC. So this to me is like one of the most important metrics. Like honestly, if there's any one metric that I would say is probably the most important, other than Bitcoin dominance and stablecoin dominance and altcoin dominance, it would be others Bitcoin. And this just shows how altcoins are performing relative to Bitcoin. It's just very simple. It's more smaller caps, so it's anything outside of the top 10, and you're talking about 100 million to a billion, right? And the beauty of this is that, and many are above a billion, but I think you get the idea. The beauty of this is that this was the earliest indication that we were going to have an altcoin boom back in October, right? Because right when you started seeing this turnaround, we needed to break this level of support, and we did. And then we had a little August, push. Then we had a correction, and then we stayed in this upwards trend. So this was the final. This was really the nice, healthy validation that we had successfully retested this uptrend channel, and that we were going to potentially go higher, and we did, right? Up until in like March, April is when things started turning around, and we broke below. That's when I started setting targets, and both of my targets have been hit. But I would say my third target for this is, if it's very simple. If we cannot maintain this 0.16, and I said this like 2 months ago, I said it a month ago, if we can't maintain 0.16, so if the market cap of altcoins that are considered more smaller cap relative to the market cap of Bitcoin, and it can't maintain 16%, right? So if altcoin cannot outperform Bitcoin greater than 16% at that point, then I would feel that then the next logical target would be around 0.12. And if that happens, just strap in and get ready, because when this happens, altcoins are going to go down, like, for the most part, another 30 to 60%, right? So it's just how it is. But then the good news, fortunately, is most of my targets would be hit, and that would hopefully conclude the purge. But just make sure you're aware of that, because it just continues to retest it. And this is the 8th time now it's retested it in 5 months. And the general theory is that, just like traditional technical analysis and charting, is that if you continue to hit support and you have declining volume, then eventually you're going to break down, right? It's just all indications are pointing to one final purge. Now, whether or not we go all the way down to 0.12 and below, it's hard to say, but that's, to me, is like the most logical landing point, because there's so much historical support at that level. Like, we continue to battle that level, and I would hope that prior resistance has been now flipped to support, and we've already hit this level of support. Massive amount of historical support at 0.16, 0.17. That's why I've been focusing on this particular level. But the next logical level would be 0.12. And so this is the time to be a lot more aggressive, I would say, in altcoins, right? So those are 5 metric ratios or targets that have not been met in my eyes just yet. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So let's go through some other things. So, and if there's any questions that you haven't posted in the thread, just go ahead and post it in the chat, or post it in the thread as well. And then I can look at it. So where are we with Bitcoin? Let me try to clean this up, because it's a little confusing here. So the problem with Bitcoin is, I'm going to add some indicators here just to make it a little bit easier. And then I'll add the momentum indicator. And okay. So this is the problem that I see with Bitcoin. On the weekly basis, we're having declining strength. So we have a weakening trend since we hit the top of 73,500. Momentum has been declining, right? So we have a weakening trend. We have declining momentum to the downside. We're below 0, which is ideally not where you want to be. And we keep getting rejected at 0 on the momentum. So what I mean by that is, every time that we've tried to hit this, and I'll show it to you on the daily, we've been rejected. And what that means is that there's not sustained strength in any type of relief rally or recovery uptrend to break the macro downtrend since March. And in reality, it's been actually, as of yesterday, it's been 6 months, right? So if somebody argues, oh, well, we're in a perpetual bull cycle or bear cycle, I don't like using that terminology. Like, it's very similar to what Crypto Hunter says, right? Is that he mentioned this in the chat as well, and I'm in full agreement with him. I like to just focus on uptrends and downtrends. And I could care less if it's an uptrend or downtrend. There's still money to be made. And I think the momentum trading engine has proven that time and time again. And I'll walk through that. But like a big example of it being exceptionally helpful for me and for many people is when it opened up a soul short on the 28th, right? Because that helped. I mean, I made good money from that. And that's just a very good time to go short, right? And it started shorting around, like, it was a little lower than this. It was like around 150 or 146, 147. And then at this point, I trailed the stop loss around like 123, 124. And then the trailing stop loss was triggered and hit, and then the profit was locked in, right? And to me, that's so it shouldn't matter whether or not you're in a bull cycle or in a bear cycle if you have like a fairly good read on where the opportunities are. But it doesn't mean try to short every single uptrend, right? I'm just trying to explain that's how I see the market right now, is that we're in this undecided territory, but clearly we have declining momentum, we have a weakening trend, and when you look at volume, it's also declining. So these are generally conditions that are not very favorable for people who are only long only or who have a long bias, right? You just have to be very protective. So when you take the bigger picture into context and you say, I'm looking at declining volume, declining strength, declining momentum, declining price action. You have there's five of my main ratios have not been hit, right, in terms of targets. That means you need to be a lot more protective in terms of taking profit, a lot more aggressive in terms of closing positions. If they're up, 2x or 3x or 4x on small microcaps, you need to be a lot more aggressive in protecting yourself and locking in those gains. So that's really how I use these ratios. It just helps me read if I want to be more aggressive in holding positions longer, or if I want to be more protective. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that explains like how I see it. But if I look at it on the daily, the daily is even more pronounced. So let's look at the daily and look at the momentum. So when I look back at March, the March top, every time that we've tried to break above zero, every time that we've tried to break above zero, we get rejected. And this one time that we broke in May, it hit 71,000 and it was a false breakout. And then we tried again in June, right? Reapproached 71,000. Again, it was a false breakout. And then we tried again back in July, declined. Then in July, it hit and we got close. We got 68,000 and everyone was like, yelling from the mountaintops that we were going to hit a new all-time high. It was a false breakout. And then again, we tried in August, a false breakout. And then again in August 25th, false breakout. But what's happening with every single attempt? You keep having a new lower high, and you have volume continuing to decline, and you have the trend is weakening. So this is my concern, right? That's why you just have to be very careful here, because you have false breakout 1, false breakout 2, false breakout 3, false breakout 4. And in each subsequent false breakout, you have price action becoming less and less favorable, right? You have a lower and lower high, and many times you have a lower low as well, right? Like on the daily, we just hit 52,000, right? That was September 6th. Like most people didn't even realize that. But back in August, we hit, was it 49,000? Yeah. I just think that So when I look at price, so let me look at price now a little bit more closely without all these other leading or lagging indicators. So if I look at price on the daily, and let me remove the prior cycle trends. And here's my problem. Here's my concern with Bitcoin is, what are you seeing here? So no matter how you chop it, right? No matter how you look at this, it doesn't make a difference. You still see the same picture. Lower highs, and for the most part, lower lows, right? Since March. And if I'm looking at this, and this is the daily, and if I'm looking at this also on the 4-hour, it's going to be even worse. Like the picture is, we just keep declining. And then every time that we have this little push up, we go down, right? And my concern is that the only way for me to be a lot more bullish on Bitcoin is for us to break out of this trend, right? We've just been in this, we were in a sideways accumulation range for a while, down to 61, and then we broke below it, and then we have lower, 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 lower. And is this hopefully, I don't know if this is considered, the final low, or whether or not 48,000, 49,000 is be revisited. But for me, I would definitely be much more interested in Bitcoin and setting bids and dynamic cost averaging in from 48, 49, all the way up to like 54,000. I think that would be considered a lot more interesting for me. And then I also like the fact that when I look at the momentum trading engine, it was going crazy the last week or two in going long. It was going long at like 53,500, 54,000, 55,000, 57,000. It just keeps going long. And the thing with the momentum trading engine is it's never sleeps, right? So if it's already in a trade, it's going to continue running and it's going to continue issuing buy signals. And it'll continue to say, hey, momentum is now trending up. Go long, go long, go long, right? And then finally, sometimes it does. Many times it'll say, okay, it's time to actually close that long, and make some profit from it, right? And yeah, I mean that's exactly what it just did recently, right? It went long, and then now it closed that long at 136, so it made some profit there. But I think those are all things to take into consideration. Is you can make some money from going short, going long, going short, going long, going short, going long, and it's worked, right? It's worked really well. The only challenge is that you really need volatility a lot of times for configuration 4. Configuration 4 is the 1-hour Bitcoin USD trading strategy, and if you only used the ones where it was showing as on TradingView, then it had an open long at I think it was 63,000, and it's still long open, right? But during that time, it continues to issue more and more longs. So I still think that the guiding principle to use is what I've used, and I've mentioned this several times in the chats, is same as I mentioned to you, Ronnie, many times, is that when you look at a strategy, look at how long a strategy is usually running for. So how long the strategy is in candles. So let me give you an actual example. So let me close this. I'll show you configuration 4 as an example. And I don't know if it's this one. 1 hour, not Heikinashi, normal candles. Okay, so this is Bitcoin USD 1 hour. And if you go to the strategy and you go to, I think it's this one. Let me see. 250,000. I think this is the right one. Yeah. So this should be it. So if I look at, yeah. So usually, what I would do is when you have a configuration that looks potentially promising, go into the average bars. So click performance summary. So what you do is let me just start from the beginning. So you add in the momentum trading engine, you pick your entry and exit conditions, you set all of the parameters that you want. And then when you go to the strategy tester, you can show your performance, you can see all of that as you need to. And then go to performance summary and then go down to the average bars in a trade. And what you can do is what you'll notice immediately for configuration 4, right? So configuration 4 is again Bitcoin on the 1 hour, is that on average, the number of bars in a trade are 147. So 147 is basically around 6 days, right? Because every bar is 1 hour. And there's 24 hours in a day, and 6 times 24 is around 147, right? 148. And that's how you know that roughly if your trade is lasting longer than 6 days, then you have to be very careful. This used to be, I think, 119. So it was around 5 days. It was around like 4.9 days. That was the average duration of each trade from momentum trading engine configuration 4, right? So just know that if your trade is open for longer than what the average number of bars in a trade is, then you know you have to be very careful. Like you have to decide whether or not you want to accept a 30% drawdown, or if you want to just cut your losses and cut off that trade, or set a trailing stop loss to make sure that you're protected if there's any kind of significant downside exposure in the event of a crash, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so Rania is saying, I'm still long since there, not sure if I should cut it. So I think it opened the long back in like mid-August. So that's way past 6 days. The other thing I find interesting is if you look at the average number of bars in a winning trade and average number of bars in a losing trade, this is very interesting. So when it does in and out trades quickly, it tends to be profitable. When it tries to hold on to positions for way too long to try to reach the 2.5% target profit, it just ends up lasting way too long. And there's only been like there's really actually only been one loss. The other loss it's actually had 0 losses if you follow this strategy and follow the parameters that I'm discussing. You really shouldn't have lost. Maybe you would have lost like 1 or 2%, but if you don't hold it for this long, you should be good. The other consideration I would make is when you have, okay, so this is very good. This is exactly what I want to show you. So if you have this trade that opens in August 26th, and no, wait, let me see. Yeah, if you open this trade on August 26th and you weren't sure, like if you kept this for longer and longer, you could have closed it here, and you could have also closed it here. So this is past the 6 days, right? And if you closed it here, you wouldn't have lost that much, very little, right? It's not printing new. I don't know why I can't see that word. Wait. No, of course not. It's not going to print new signals because it's in an open trade. That's what I was saying before, is that when you're in an open trade, the momentum trading engine will continue to work in the background. It doesn't sleep. It'll continue to issue buy signals or short signals, right? Go long or go short, because it's reading momentum in a different way. But it won't, unless you configure it that way, to go and have an invalidation. So if you go to the exit conditions and you say exit on the opposite signal, this. So if you click this, then it'll close every single time that it's in an open long, and then there's an opportunity to go short, it'll close the long. But right now for this configuration, I don't have that set enabled. But if you want that enabled, you can enable that. Hopefully that makes sense. But these are all invalidation conditions. Okay. All right. So let's start going through some questions here. You're very welcome, Rania. Okay. So would be more interested in learning about KERO and kerosene and DYAD. So I don't know how much detail you want me to go into here, but if you haven't heard about this, I think it would definitely be um, it definitely would be interesting for you to spend some time. I would encourage you all to just take a look at this DYAD stablecoin and how it works. I don't want to like confuse you on what it's trying to do, but the fundamental problem when you look at some of the other stable coins that are out in issuance is that they're predominantly all centralized and they're centrally redeemed, they're centrally issued, they're centrally tracked, centrally monitored. Like you're talking about Tether by the Tether Foundation or pseudo for profit corporation. You're talking about Circle, right? And then even when you're looking at the Maker and Maker DAO, and you're talking about some of the other like DA1 ones, DAI, the problem with those is that they're just unnecessarily over collateralized. So you're talking about like 150% collateralized versus something that really ideally should just be pegged 1-to-1 or should be over collateralized without having you freeze your capital indefinitely. So that's like the fundamental problem with all stable coins. Okay. The other problem is that you're talking about they're too centralized and they're over collateralized, right? So DYAD was an effort to try to create some form of pseudo utility token called KERO, KERO or kerosene, to try to address that dilemma, right? That's really what it's trying to do. Now, if you want to learn about it, just go to DYAD and Gitbook and read about it. But if you have any questions about it, I can explain to you and I can answer any questions around why they consider it to be more deterministic and more capital efficient and more managed and so forth. But it's interesting to me, and I think it's definitely worth maybe having some exposure to it and just considering like how it works and because when I look at the KERO coin, right? So let's open it up here. So it should be 13 million. Yeah, there you go. So it's on Ethereum, and and it's continuing to rise. It's still fairly new, right? But here, change it to daily. So this is an experiment. So, bear that in mind, obviously, right? But whenever you're trying to create a utility token that is trying to adjust the capital value of a collateralized, decentralized stablecoin, you're going to have some extreme volatility. So just keep that in mind here because we've already gone down. We broke out of that and we hit 35 cents and now it's down and then went down, you're talking about like 60, 70%. And then now it's back into an uptrend. So just be careful. I'm mostly interested in the mechanics of it and whether or not we can truly have a much more capital efficient, decentralized, fairly collateralized stablecoin rather than always relying on USDT and USDC. But I'm always weary of these. You just have to be very careful. So that would be my thoughts on that. If you believe in it and believe in the merits of it, then definitely having some exposure to the utility token would make sense. In addition to hoarding some of the stable coins as well. Yeah, Pudgy Penguins. So what are my thoughts on the chart? So Pudgy Penguins, if you guys remember, I talked about Pudgy Penguins as part of some NFT analysis that I had done a while ago. It was a long time ago. And I remember very clearly saying that let me show you the USD value. It's a lot easier. So if I show you the USD value of Pudgy Penguins, and my point back then was, sorry guys, we have a visitor. Daddy. Go to mommy. I want chips. You want chips? Okay, go to mama. Okay, I have to work.
Okay.
Okay, close the door, Bubba. Suck in the butt. Sorry, guys. Jesus Christ. Okay. I could hear him because he was yelling "Daddy" for like a minute, and I knew this was going to happen. So my point back then was that there was a huge amount of resistance around 10,000, and I felt that every time it was 5 out of 5 times it kept getting rejected at 10,000. That was that resistance. It just could not break above 10,000. And then I said very clearly that if it breaks above 10,000, we're off to the races. Like we're absolutely going to see a number that's considerably higher, right? And it's already hit. It already hit like well over 60,000, and now it's right back down, right to 24,000. So I would say that there's some support here, but if it doesn't hold that level of 20,000, we are very likely almost guaranteed to go right back down between 20 and 10,000. And if we don't hold, so those are clearly the next logical levels for me that I would say to be very careful about. Because I would have said, if you were holding it at 60 plus thousand and you're asking me, or what should I do? I said, okay, you got to hold it until 45. And if it doesn't hold 45, then you need to cut it. Otherwise, you're going to have to experience like a 60, 70, 80% drawdown. And when you're talking about an 80% drawdown in an inherently illiquid NFT asset, that's like, I would say, to me, it would be much worse than holding some type of fundamentally strong altcoin that's already trading on multiple centralized exchanges, because at least you have some liquidity you can tap into. With NFTs, you don't. But Pudgy Penguins, to me, I like the project. I've always loved the project. It's been on my watch list forever. I was going to buy a lot more at that point, but to me, it's just, I love their partnerships. I love their brand marketing affiliations with, I think they had like Walmart. They had like so many different institutional relationships where they were leveraging their Pudgy Penguins like catchy brand, and they were all over Instagram, all over Twitter. Like they did an amazing job on that front. But look at the liquidity. See the floor price. The floor price is a very good indication of illiquid assets, right? When you have such massive spread, you have massive differences. Of course, there's been no volume on LooksRare, but that just worries me. It's really only selling one a day. You might be going and posting this for sale on OpenSea. And I don't know if you've used OpenSea for a long time, but I've bought and sold a lot of NFTs, and sometimes you just have to sit there for like 6 months before you're able to sell an asset and liquidate it for cash. So just be careful with these. Be careful with NFTs. But there's, to me, NFTs, and I've showed this many times before, but if you look at NFTs as a whole, they are almost close to an all-time low in terms of like global popularity, right? Let me just refresh this. It was like, I think the Google search volume and the popularity index of NFTs as a whole was at like 2, right? So this could be a good time to buy them long term if you're like really interested in them. So here, I'll show you. So this is, where's NFTs? NFTs decline. I think there's a bug here with the way that these metrics are being displayed. I have to look into that. But NFTs were really low. Right now it's updating every day. I think it's not a bug, it's just the way it's designed. I need to change it to weekly, but I had it weekly before, where it would show you the popularity of NFTs relative to the popularity of other metrics, and then relative to themselves. So you can see how popular NFTs was now versus how they were before. And here, I'll just do it now for you. So if I go Google Trends and I type in NFTs, and then I type in worldwide, and I set it for the last 5 years. So you see where it is right now? So it reached a top at 100 popularity, overall interest over time, back in like January of 2022. And now it's close to an all-time low at 4, right? So you could argue that this is actually an opportune time to accumulate some NFTs. The ones that I'm looking at are in the watch list. I like these. Bored Ape Yacht Club and Mutant Ape Yacht Club, I still feel can go down another 30-40%. But Autoglyphs, Meebits, Genesis, Cool Cats, like Fidenza, these are all struggling, right? But Pudgy Penguins was like one of the few that actually was gaining in value, which is when made it interesting for me. But these are all down like 95%. I mean, it's terrible. Okay, so let me go back to my Discord. All right, so let's go through the next question. It would be cool to know if you have any thoughts on ZK Sync. I sold the airdrop, but I'm thinking it could be worth getting a bag long term. From what I've seen, the network is fast, cheap, and long. So I love ZK Sync. Like I've used it extensively. I was happy with the airdrop. I sold it like I told everyone. I very strongly suggest everyone sell this airdrop and also sell. I'll show you. Also sell the Notcoin airdrop as well, because the problem with these airdrops is every single time they get listed on a prominent tier 1 exchange like Binance, they just collapse. They collapse like 90%. So I'll show you. So if I look at, so fundamentally strong, like I have no concerns about it fundamentally. But if I look at the price action, right? Price action is, think about this, right? This is why I suggested to everyone to sell. Is because, and this is the same phenomenon with all post-tokenizing airdrop issuance, right? Is once there's a token generation event and the airdrop has concluded, tokens are issued and distributed to all the early farmers and early users and supporters, you just have these massive declines, right? And right now, when I look at this, it just makes me nervous, right? It's like we have very limited price history, right? We have 3 months worth of price history. We've like quadruple bottomed at this point, right? And you could argue that this could be a good accumulation zone. But I don't see any reason why it can't hit 13 cents and then go right back down to 9 cents and just keep, bouncing around over and over again. The biggest problem with ZK to me is that I don't think there's a BTC. There is one on Binance. Good. This is my problem. I really need this to be outperforming Bitcoin for me to be attracted, for me to just buy and hold this. But I do believe it long term. But I need this bleeding to stop. I really need this breakout above 208 Satoshi around there. I really need that to happen before I become much more interested in buying this. And it's not this, it's the same exact phenomenon with all layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains. Like if I look at ARB, right? It's the same exact problem with all of them. They're all down so much. And I'm just not interested in these. I'm not interested in buying something that just continues to decline in value, no matter how fundamentally strong they are, no matter how much I believe in the merits of the project. I believe in the founding teams. I believe in the development ecosystem, the development community. I can see how much they're publishing in terms of commits to their GitHub repositories. That's how like active the development is, how often they're pushing applications, how often they're promoting the ecosystem. It doesn't matter, right? The point is that you can't debate with the data, right? You cannot, doesn't matter how strong they are, still went down 81%. So I really need this to stop. And I hope that 50 cents was the bottom, right? And I hope that this massive explosive volume on August 5th as part of that final, hopefully that final crash, really, to me, is like the final surrender, right? When final investors are just like, I give up. I'm completely done with this asset. I don't want to buy. I don't want to hold it anymore. Hopefully, but new bottoms are continuing to form. This is my problem with altcoins, is that just we have no idea where the support is. It's the same thing with optimism. So you could argue that Arbitrum and Optimism are even more valuable, right, than ZK Sync. And you can see Optimism is actually it's the same exact problem. right? This is my problem with these assets. They're all following the same type of bloody declining trend, and I just don't see why I would be interested in accumulating these coins when they're already hitting some significant resistance in terms of the strength of the trend. When I look at the relative strength, they're already hitting resistance in terms of the momentum. In the past, right, the last 7 months, every time that we've hit resistance on this price trend, we've been rejected. Okay. Every time that we've hit resistance on the strength of the trend, we've declined. So you can't just look at the standard definition of, oh, RSI needs to be above 70 on the daily and the weekly for it to be considered overbought. It doesn't work that way, right? This is not like an exact science when you're talking about technical analysis. That's why I like to mix sentimental analysis and fundamental analysis and bring that all into the picture. So we know that Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, we know Stacks, we know all these projects are fundamentally strong. So check. We know that the sentiment towards them is very negative and bearish right now. And we know that the price action is very bearish. So every time that we're hitting this, we're getting rejected. So to me, what are the chances that this next time we're going to get rejected? Probably high. So I would be a lot more interested in Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, all of these, if we can just finally break out of this bloody 7-month downtrend since late February, early March. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So I'll talk about NFTs again. Yeah. NFTs are just funny. So hopefully that answers that question. And another question about what's the chance that NFTs will ever come back? So I've loved NFTs since I first learned about them in 2016 and 2017. This is like way before, any of them were truly became popular whatsoever. And I was just obsessed with the ability to have some form of digital collectibles. So I believe in the longevity of digital collectibles, but I also equally believe is just as important is that there has to be some type of utility for these NFTs, right? So access to private clubs and private events and private associations only for NFT holders, to me, potentially could be intriguing. Absolutely, because I'll give you an example. So when I went to Consensus conference in Austin this year, they had a special group of events only for NFT holders of the Bill Murray. He's like a famous, like, class A Hollywood actor, right? And I just love him. I think he's hilarious. And you had to have his NFT, right, to be able to access the club and access all the private events. I was so close to buying the NFTs just to be able to access it. So like that kind of FOMO is intriguing to me, Another like so to me, so that has utility. There's actual use for it. It's someone to like commemorate an actual famous actor who's like endeared and like loved and like respected by like a cult. It's like a cult-like community, right? The Bored Ape Yacht Club is intriguing, but it was more just about vanity and about like the equivalent of a digital flex. It was the equivalent of you buying like a Lamborghini and then just having your keys, at the side of your pocket, and everyone is seeing that, right? It's like against everything I believe in, and it's against my lifestyle, right? So, but I could see how that could do really well. So those types of like vanity-based collectibles, private event, subscriber-based NFT, like gatekeeping, you know, utility, I think makes sense. I think NFTs with utility within a gaming verse or a metaverse or a Web3 kind of sphere, I think those are going to do all really well. I don't see how those can't do well. Land ownership, so like anything that's tagged to a land ownership will do well. All the NFTs that I loved are the ones with even the PFPs, like all the profile picture NFTs. I like those, right? I like the milady ones. Like I like the ones that I like these ones. These are the ones that are interesting to me. You know, I think they're intriguing, right? So like ether Lambos and like crypto cannabis and like, but the problem is that I just don't go crazy on them. So like the ones that I would say are very likely to survive long term would be like crypto punks, but even that, like I think do they really need to be like high five figures, low six figures, all the way up to 100 ETH, 200 ETH, 300 ETH? Like people are paid like 10 plus million for this. Like that to me is ridiculous. But just being able to have a CryptoPunk would be fun. Having a few autoglyphs, having some cool cats, some fidenzas, like I think it would be good, you know? Um, and I think the Bored Ape Kennel and the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Mutant Ape Yacht Club, right? That's like the trifecta of the yacht club exposure. It was intriguing to me, but it was more of like an elaborate cash grab by the founding team. And then a lot of their ambitions and plans didn't materialize. So that's that was the fundamental problem with them, is that it didn't materialize in a way that they had aspired to, right? They wanted to create an entire gaming application marketplace. They wanted to create an entire ecoverse. Like it didn't work the way that they wanted to. Now, but I'm still interested in them because of how valuable they were back then, right? So like back then, they exploded. I mean, everybody was obsessed with them. So, and then the fact that they're down so much makes it even more interesting to me. It went from like almost 500,000 to now being worth 27,000. Right? So you could even argue that this could be considered considerably relatively more undervalued than Pudgy Penguins at this point. Because we don't know where the bottom is, but it's probably very likely going to hit like 15,000, which was what my target was for Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I think maybe that could be intriguing, So these like avatar based NFTs I think are interesting. Okay, now next question. Can you explain your process of finding new configurations? How can you make sure to avoid overfitting? So when we're coming up with configurations, I'm not doing it by myself, right? So we're all doing it as a group. All I'm doing is I'm finding configurations that potentially could be interesting. And what I try to look for, and I'll show you, let me show you one for Solana. And I'll do the 1 day. Yeah, so this one, so how did we come up with this one, right? I'll walk you through the process. This configuration 1 for the momentum trading engine for Solana has been running since 2020. Okay. And we've been forward testing it for over a year, and it's done exceptionally well, even though its trade accuracy is not higher than 40%. Sometimes it's higher, but it's usually around 40%, 40 to 50%. Because to me, what I liked about this configuration is we came up with like the general skeleton of the configuration. And then Alex, right, Crypto Hunter, and I kept iterating it. And I felt like I reached like a level where I was like satisfied with it. And Alex was happy with it. And then he took it away and worked on it further, continued to tweak it and configure it to get to a point where he maximized the profitability and improved the trade accuracy even more. And this is what you see here. So the last iteration that he had worked on is now configuration 1, right? And what we liked about it is that I don't feel like we are overfitting, because we're not using every single entry condition that we're trying to use, right? We're really not using that many entry conditions. We're really only using momentum-based entry conditions, and we're using 15 days. We're using 6 stacked, like moving averages. We're not using higher time frames. We're not using log-based bounds. Like we're using RSI conditions, but these are just normal, traditional, average 14-day RSI to go long when the RSI is less than 61, and to go short when it's greater than 38, right? And the only other thing that you could potentially argue is even this is not that precise. Like this is looking at Solana USDT, making sure that the 100-day exponential moving average price is 10% above that level, right? So the price is above the 100-day exponential moving average of Solana. And that is it. Those are really like the only entry conditions. And then the exit condition, we're using a 10% stop loss, which is phenomenal. And we're only exiting when there's an opposite signal. So if we're in an open long, then the opposite signal comes in for a short, and we close the long and open the short, right? So this is absolutely not overfitting. Now, how do I look at the conditions? I explained this in detail in the tutorial, so I would definitely strongly encourage you to look at the tutorial if you haven't already. But go into the performance summary and go all the way down. So first of all, you see that, so what are conditions need to be met for me? So I really, the net profit is not that important for me. What's more important is I want to outperform buying and holding of some asset that I'm looking at. So if I'm looking at Solana, I'm trying to create a base configuration for Solana. I create a base configuration and then I keep iterating it and keep improving it and tweaking it until I'm sufficiently pleased and happy with the strategy, right? So for this one, I was very happy with it because it's more or less has been outperforming buying and holding Solana since 2020 by a huge factor, right? So this is, think about this, right? This is considered close to a 500x with no leverage. It's not using any leverage, right? It's not using any leverage. Equity is 100% order size, no leverage whatsoever. And to me, when I look at buy and hold, a buy and hold return was 69. So 69x is excellent. You can't argue with making 69 to 70 times what you would be making. And this 69x outperforms Bitcoin by a factor of 7x. Okay, so you're buying and holding Bitcoin, you would be making 7x, 700%. You're buying and holding Solana, you'd be making 6,900%, right? And then, or you're using the momentum trading engine configuration 1, and you'd be making close to 500x. So would you rather outperform Solana by 7x and outperform Bitcoin by almost 100x, right? Yes, I would definitely prefer that, right? So to me, that condition's met. Second condition, if you go to the bottom and you look at average trade, I love that the average trade profit is 32%. I love that the average losing trade is only 6%. Average winning trade is almost 90%. So on average, the trade losses are 6%, 6.7%. The stop loss is at 10%. I like that when we win, we tend to win massively at 90%. And I like that on average, we make around 32%. So to me, those are attractive conditions for me to pursue this configuration more and spend more time with it. The challenge I have with these configurations is, when do I decide to intervene versus non-intervene? So when do I invalidate a configuration? If I have a few successive losses. So like, perfect example. So this, on August 16th, it had a loss, 10%, right? Then on August 25th, it had a loss again. Now, when do I intervene? Do I intervene and try to change the configuration when I've had 2 or 3 successive losses, like when I have 2 or 3 back-to-back losses? Or do I wait until there's 4? Do I wait until I have 3 in 1 month? Or like, what are the terms that I invalidate the strategy? This is what I'm challenging with. Second challenge is, how do I reduce the number of false breakouts or false breakdowns? How do I reduce the rate of false positive or false negatives? That's been like, these are my 2 biggest challenges that I've been trying to work on. And what I have found works tremendously well is you just manage the exits. So if you manage the exits yourself, so perfect example. If you went short at 137 on August 30th using configuration 1, there's no reason why, when you're already up 10% in profit, you should be trailing your stop loss, right? It ran up to 13% of profit, and then it finally closed a short when it was 2% profit. It's still profitable, but why hold it for that long? And it's the same thing with so many of these trades. Like this one on August 1st, it shorted at 167, and it went from 167, I believe it went to like below 120. So it was 34% in profit. And I mentioned this and I shared this in the trades. I shared this very clearly that it's time to take profit on these positions. I've been doing my best to try to warn everybody. It's a very good time to trail this position. It's a very good time to shift the stop loss and not rely on the engine to tell you when to exit. The same exact thing on July 10th, right? So if you look at July 10th, it went long, and there was no reason why you want to hold this all the way down to here. When it's hitting, I remember it's telling everyone at 190, it's time to take profit and trail your stop loss. And if you trail your stop loss tight and it gets to 185, then you cut it loose, right? So to me, managing your exits is by far the best way. I don't ever want to rely on an engine, no matter how sophisticated it may be, to have exits. Like, look at all these trades. All these trades, right? These trades were all in profit. Like this one, 71%. This one went from $18, was 71% in profit. It was like a $26, $27. Even more, it was almost at $30 at one point. Why wait until it closes at 23? You're up 70%, up 50%. Take profit, trail your stop loss, move it up and protect your gains. So that would be that's how I interpret it. Now, other questions. Can you explain? I did this. Can you explain macro chart indicators, ratios, start bidding alts? I did that. If you have any more questions, Andrew, happy to help, brother. Hello, fundamental and technical analysis. Yeah, so I was looking at this. So Hello Labs, this is definitely an interesting project, and I like the momentum trading engine was going short back in like beginning of 2024. This is definitely an interesting project. Like, there's no question to me, it's a big media and publication company that has Hello Labs and Hello TV, and they have a partnership with CoinMarketCap. I know about this project. I've been tracking it. And I do believe in the merits of the project. And I do believe that it's down a huge amount, right? It's down 93%. So this would not be the time that I would be looking to sell, right? Only challenge is that if you don't, let me remove the momentum trading engine and try to give you some more accurate assessment here. The problem, though, is that it really doesn't have any support. It has zero support here. Like, it has back support in October of 2022, and it has back in February of 2023. If the support doesn't hold, that makes me nervous that you're going to basically be hitting these levels. That's my problem. We just have such limited historical support with this asset that and this is the same situation with 99% of the assets that you guys listed here you want me to look at, is that if we don't hold this support, I would cut it, because you're very likely going to go right back down to below a cent, potentially go down another 50%. And in the past, when the Federal Reserve did rate cuts or made any type of fiscal tightening or monetary tightening and restricting capital from being able to be entering circulation, right? So basically pivoting, right? Reducing interest rates. If they do that, typically altcoins get wiped out during that time, right? And that's like the final hit. Then unemployment spikes, and then you essentially you have much healthier market conditions at that afterwards. So if that happens, I don't see this particular asset not re-entering this ridiculous declined range, right? So that's what makes me nervous about Hello. Hey Tommy, what's up, brother? It's good to see you, man. I'm recording it, so don't worry. You can catch up after. So okay, Connor, I'm going to ask a very obvious one. If we have a significant exposure to high risk small cap alts, and I've been holding them since the top in March, would you continue to hold them from here from a bull market in the next 6 to 18 months, or would you consolidate into Bitcoin? Yeah, I mean, if you're down 95%, if you're not willing to have another 50, 60% drawdown, then of course it would make sense to cut them. But to me, if you have projects that you really believe in and you feel are strong, I don't see any reason why you you would cut them when they're down 95%, 98%, 99%. You believed in those projects, you had bought them for a reason, you had a very clear purpose and intent in holding them. You know, bottoms potentially could be in the next 1 to 2 months. And I think you would regret dumping coins that you felt were fundamentally strong and have clear utility and have strong partnerships and have strong exclusive relationships with the likes of CoinMarketCap, you know? Um, Hopefully that makes sense. But let's go through. So, okay, next question. I'm in the same boat. I don't see why I would sell now when I'm already down 95, 99% on most projects. The best I can do is get back pennies on the dollar. I sell all of them today. I might as well wait. In the meantime, I'm putting in what I can afford to lose into new projects in the hope of these coins will repeat the performance that I had in March and April. Perhaps I'll break even and make a big, yeah. When you break even, then you definitely have an opportunity to reevaluate and consider what you want to do. But let's look at actual coins. So I'd like to know if the recent increase in the price of Doge is due to rumors that eating dogs might actually be happening. Jeez. I know, I think he's joking, but still, it's like funny to read that. So my view on Doge is really the same. Like, I don't. Every time that we break the all-time high with Doge, we go on this massive run up, and I was hoping that we were going to hit this level at this point. We're still not there yet. This is back in October, so I still stand by my prediction that hopefully we can have some type of recovery, but I think it's going to probably be potentially later. And once that recovery happens, it typically coincides with Bitcoin breaking its all-time high as well. And when that happens, the last 2 times that that's happened, Doge went on a 30x run, and the last time it went on a 100x plus run, right? So when Bitcoin all-time high is broken, then you are really set in for like an explosive move by Doge. And it doesn't actually suffer from diminishing returns as much as Bitcoin does. So Doge is intriguing for me only because it has some markedly higher lows, but it has lower highs. It's the King Kong of meme coins. This has definitely been a meme coin driven market cycle. I believe that it can easily hit $1 to $1.50 to potentially even $2, even $3 on an extremely hot month. I've accumulated as much as I want to accumulate, and I don't want to accumulate anymore at this point. I'm very happy with my Doge position, and that's how I see Doge. So, and so you think the bottom is in within a month or two? I think the bottom is in the next 3 months maximum, for altcoins, and for if Bitcoin's 48,000 wasn't the bottom, then I still stand by my target range of 40 to 48,000 as an absolute worst case scenario. When I look at Bitcoin, and the problem with Bitcoin, which is why this is what worries me about Bitcoin a little bit, is that, and I'm not that worried, but it's definitely a consideration, is that if people in the past, the 200-week SMA, which is in yellow, and the 314-week SMA, which we call pi, that's in blue, right? Usually if a market cycle truly has entered a bear cycle and has flipped bearish for 12 plus months, it would typically bottom around the 200-week SMA to the 314-week SMA. I don't think we're at that phase yet. I don't think that this is what this concludes the market boom is us hitting 73,000. That doesn't make any sense. Like, we really only went up 4,000. We haven't even broken the all-time high in terms of total crypto market cap. That was 3 billion, and we didn't even break it, right? It was 3.1 billion, and we didn't break it. We got close. We got to 2.7, but we didn't even break the total crypto market cap. So how is that a market cycle to me, in my eyes? But if in the unbelievably unlikely event of us actually truly hitting a true bear market for a while, then this would be the bottom of where I would think would be the absolute extreme black swan event. You know, if World War III happens, or if, some country is invaded and there's like, geopolitical unrest, and there's like civil unrest, and there's macroeconomic fears and the failure right, left, and center, then definitely I would absolutely see the levels of 38 below hit. but I don't see that happening. That's not a likely scenario for me. The more likely scenario is that we bottom around 54 to 48, and if we don't hold that level, then 48 to 40 would be my absolute worst case. But we already hit 48. So is that the bottom? I'm not sure, right? So I went through a lot of that at the beginning. Do you think it will make a big difference for Bitcoin if Trump or Harris win? I think if Trump wins, definitely would be considered more favorable for crypto, um, because depends on whether or not he pursues like escalation of the war with in like the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, or whether or not he de-escalates it. Typically during wartime, um, the financial markets boom because there's economic stimulus and fiscal policies that are considered much more favorable in terms of accessing cash easier because they don't want to have a recession materialize. They don't want people to be fearful. They want people to be deploying capital and taking more risks. And if that happens, then you could have another push up, right, for the next 12 months. And that happens maybe after he's inaugurated back into presidency in January. Or maybe it happens around the same time that where he's elected and nominated, but then not inaugurated, right? And maybe that's like the second week of November. But to me, I think he's created the perception that he's going to be able to single-handedly recover the financial markets and try to stimulate production and stimulate total industrial output, and that's obviously going to translate into the traditional equities going up and crypto going up. Um, I'm curious, because my prediction for the longest time is that he will win. Um, because the way he reacted, when he was shot in the head, and like I think his brand marketing is on point. I mean, he's an absolute brilliant advertising genius, and the way that he celebrated that, and I think that was just so well done. And I think he garnered a huge amount of support, and now he's mobilizing political PAC support and a huge amount of congressional financial backing, lobbyist backing. So to me, I think he stands a very good chance. But in there's like a famous history professor who's correctly predicted every single past president. They call him like the Nostradamus of presidential predictions, and he's only been wrong, I think, 2 times. He was wrong with Al Gore, but he predicted Harris was going to win. And I think some of the polls are suggesting Harris would win. But to me, uh, and it's funny because Al Gore, he did win the popular vote, but he ended up not winning, right? The actual electoral based voting process. But to me, I'm curious if Harris is going to in fact win. I think her performance in the debate probably localized more support for her. But I don't like either of them, to be completely honest with you. I don't like either of those. I don't like the options at all. I feel I wish we had like a third party, independent, somebody coming in with like fresh blood, fresh perspective, who's not so, I think, divisive and so yeah, those are my thoughts. But I am curious. I'm really curious what they say. I think Harris definitely. I don't think she gives a flying, blow about crypto. I think she was like pandering to her base, trying to show some support. Trump absolutely hated and detested crypto until recently, and then now he's joined TikTok and he's joined like the younger social media apps, and he actually spoke about crypto at Bitcoin Nashville. He's very strongly supportive of it. So at least he knows something about it, for God's sakes. I don't know if Harris knows much about it. Those are my views. We'll see. So, okay. So let's look at these coins. So MUBI, OKN, HS, and FI. I would love a third candidate. Yeah, exactly. Just introduce a third candidate and then introduce purely popular vote rather than having electoral based colleges involved and having like these like proxy votes that we have to vote through someone else. And I know why they did it. I understand the history, but I don't agree with it. So let's look at MUBI. MUBI. This coin is funny. All right. I mean, this is the thing, right? I think, no, will we hit a bottom here? Like, is this considered a relic of the past, or is this considered something that could potentially recover and do well? I just don't. This is going to be the same thing with all of them, right? I'm not going to be interested in this until we break out of this bloody, 4 or 5 month downtrend, and this is definitely defining a bottoming process, though. Inclining volume, price continuing to hit support. RSI is almost entering oversold territory. Momentum is rising since June, but still below zero. Right? These are not very favorable conditions, but these could be considered favorable if you're trying to catch a bottom. So I know you're not sure whether or not you would sell it. I wouldn't sell it at this point until it actually breaks below 2 cents. I just don't think. I don't think it's even worth even considering selling it at this point. It's already down like 95%. And if I'm looking at it on the daily, you're seeing some higher lows but lower highs. And if I'm looking at it on the 4-hour, yeah, I mean, it's just getting rejected. It's getting rejected here. So you just have to keep an eye on this. But definitely not a time to be selling this. Unless it breaks below 2 cents, I really don't see the reason why you would sell this. That's MUBI. And then OKN. Oh, OKN. I don't even think it's on this. Yeah. It's got to be on Deck Screener. Okay. So OKN. Yeah. Because they rebranded, right? What are you going to say about these, man? Oh my God. Is it like new bottoms, right? I mean, what can be said about this? What? Oh, 0 KN. Okay. No, but that's what I did. Oh, zero knowledge network. Okay. I don't think this is doing any better. This is even worse, man. This is down. Oh my God. I mean, what can I say about this? Definitely hitting some resistance here. And if it could hopefully hold that as support here, but if it doesn't, there's some very clearly defined bottoms here. I wouldn't be selling this. Not now. Doesn't make any sense to sell this now. Not in my opinion. I wouldn't be selling this. If it gets rejected here, it's very likely going to go right back down to 2656. If it goes to 2656 and it doesn't hold, then I would definitely be much more bearish on holding this. But you're talking about an asset that's already gone down 93%, 92%. So, and if you do something that you don't want to be holding that long term, then definitely you can take some profit here. You can take some profit here. You can take some profit here. So these are like the key levels that I see for sure. Problem will also, you have some liquidity, which is good. There's not a huge amount of trading volume. That's fine. But if I look at the actual, yeah, it's 295,000 in each, right? That's fine. And if I look at the block explorer itself, yeah, it's all there. It's all locked. Looks good to me. And then, so that's from their marketing wallet. And yeah, I think it's fine. Okay. So the next one, Aegis. Yeah, this one's here. That's not going to be on. That is not going to be on. Oh my God. 700,000 now. Wow. Wow. I can tell you right away, it just doesn't make any sense to sell this. Unless you want to make like a few dollars from it. But it only has $2,000 in volume. Still has 240,000 in liquidity. But it's already down so much. It's down 98%. I think it's like 90, 95, 98%. Yeah, 99%. Wouldn't make any sense to sell this, to be completely honest with you. And then Blockbank FI, this is different. I think this actually has some kind of like, some merit to it. This one makes sense to potentially hold, but problem is, it's the same problem with all of them, right? It just continues to get rejected. It just gets rejected every time. And look at the volume. I don't know if it's getting rejected here or if this is the beginning of a breakout. Look at the volume. So those are concerns for me. Those are concerns for me. Every time it has this breakout, it continues to conclude to a false breakout, and it hits this resistance and the trend, and right? But I will say that there's some convergence here a little bit on a horizontal and diagonal basis. And maybe this is considered an inverse head and shoulder. I don't know. It's really hard to say because the shoulder is, I guess you could. It's an inverse head and shoulder, which is the beginning pattern of a bull break. Then you have a potential break of the diagonal, and you have a break of the horizontal. And you have an increasing volume. Interesting. Yeah, wouldn't be selling this. Definitely would not be selling that. VMint. So, VMint. I remember VMint. Let me open up. Okay. Let's look at VMint. It's going to be the same thing. See, whenever you're seeing the bottom continuing to hit like this, it's probably going to break through. But if it breaks through, if it doesn't, and actually holds this trend, then I would be more interested in this asset. Yeah, but if it doesn't hold that support, I would be very careful, because there's no reason why, especially with 6,000 trading volume on a bloody declining trend that's down 98%. The problem is you still have a long way to go. You have this big region here. You have this big region here that is not breached yet. So even though the fully diluted valuation is 5 million, there's no reason why it can't go back down to 1 or 2. I don't like it. I would be very careful with this. Just keep an eye on it. And if it breaks below 5291 and it goes right down to 4.5, I would probably consider cutting it. OCD is I think it's this one, on-chain dynamics one. I remember this one. So hopefully you guys are finding this helpful. Let me just looking at his list here. Yeah, OCD. So OCD, you're having a nice little break on the daily. I'm looking at Heikinashi, but this could be intriguing. This could be intriguing, a lot more intriguing than the others. But we had the exact same break in the past, but it didn't sustain multiple times. But this broke and it went above here, and that was a very good time to take profit. It's another time to take profit. But yeah, I'm not that inclined to sell these when they're down so much. It just doesn't make much sense to me. You're also going to experience like significant spread if you're trying to sell a lot of this when you only have a 1,000 volume. Like I think that's the part that makes me nervous. So let's say you had here. Say I want to sell it to ETH. Let's say you have so you're already at 10% price slippage just selling $1,000 worth of it, which is considered a million OCD because they have an OCD fee of 9%. Jesus. Is that what the actual sell tax is? Oh my God. That's annoying. It's not actually coming from the slippage, but the spread is coming from the sell tax. No good. Doesn't make much sense to sell at this point. It shows some promise on the break of the uptrend. And then INS. So let me look at INS. INS, inscribe. Oh my God. Yeah, I wouldn't. Problem is there's no bottom with this one. You're already at the bottom. New bottoms are formed every time. New bottoms are forming here. $58 trade volume. I remember this project. I think I remember you sending me this project. Yeah, these are all just these are not worth spending too much time on. Blender, what's the BLNDR? What is it? Crypto. I don't even think it's listed on CoinMarketCap. I don't. Is this the one you're talking about, Blender? I don't know if it is, because Blender is actually not terrible. Let's see. Yeah, this one. So let's look at Blender. Yeah, I wouldn't be selling this. Definitely would not be looking to sell this right now. We've more or less already hit the bottom. It didn't make any sense. And you're having this converged right angle triangle here. It's converging into the corner. It's decision time at this point. So what else? Let's look at the next ones. So what is Fushly asking? So Ample. I would not be looking to sell Ample because I'll explain. So Ample is a pseudo stablecoin that has a rebasing supply, right? So my view on Apple and what I've done and what I've explained many times is that I would be buying it below $1 and then selling it above 130. Buying, selling. Buying, selling. Those are the two levels that I've always used. It has worked tremendously well, right? It's not failed me. So to me, you could be, depending on when you bought, you could definitely be looking to offload around 130. That would be my view on Ample. Very simple. If you have any questions on that, I'll explain, no problem. But the next one you asked me to look at is 0PN or OPN? Open ecosystem? This must be the one you're talking about. Oh my Lord. Wow, from $8 to, I can't believe it declined that much and it's still worth 8 million. Unbelievable. I mean, it's sort of hitting double bottomed here, but now it broke below. I don't know. I don't know about this one. I don't like this at all. I mean, there's no reprieve. I don't see any kind of relief in sight anytime soon. This could easily go right back down to like 2 million pre-issuance, which is crazy. Actually, in one day, the first day it went from, okay, so this was considered the actual bottom, and it's just been in a decline. This may recover because I remember this project. Yeah, on-chain ticketing, every month billions of dollars revenue. I've invested in so many on-chain ticketing companies. It's unbelievable, but they just don't materialize many times because they're not typically profitable. I don't understand how this can't be profitable if it's made 110 million. So this is the ticketing revolution DAO, proudly collaborating with. They're not actually collaborating with these companies. They're just using their platforms. Enter the portal. Okay, the whole thing crashed on me, but I wouldn't be in a hurry to sell this at this point. It's already down. It's down like 99.9%. Okay, the dog NFT. Let's see where this is. The dog NFT, I would say, is considered just a derivative of Doge. So if you believe in the long-term value of meme coins and in the power of memetics and that social revolution as a whole, then I would just hold this. There'd be no reason why this can't outperform even Doge when Doge starts outperforming Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USD, right? And I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. But the problem is when I look at Doge, I mean, we already did Doge, but it's not going anywhere. So I've just been accumulating at this point. But if you look at Doge Bitcoin, it's hit a bottom at this point, right? It just keeps hitting this bottom around 165. And that's a good bottom. That's definitely a good bottom. I definitely don't want to break this bottom. If it breaks this below, goes below 176 Satoshi, and we go down to 85, 90, then you definitely know that owned a Doge NFT is absolutely going to go right back down to below 0.002. Just bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. You know, we had like a quadruple bottom here and we didn't hold this time. But a bit of a recovery here. Don't like the volume either. That's what makes me nervous. But I'm sure you bought it thinking you're going to hold it long term. So it doesn't make any sense for me to be selling Doge or selling a Doge derivative or like selling Doge because I'm fine with having another 50, 60% drawdown. You may not be, but if you are, then hold it. But if you don't, then there's definitely a chance it goes right back down below 0.002. That's what I've mentioned now. That's essentially the bottom, right? Hopefully that makes sense. If not, please ask me, brother. RWAX. Oh, I remember this. This was on base. Yeah, I wouldn't be selling this. No reason. No reason to sell it now. There was a lot of opportunities to sell it, but now is not one of them. Was this a false breakout? Now it's retesting that trend line? Potentially. It broke. Now it's retesting it. If it tested successfully, then maybe we go have a recovery. If not, then we're probably going to go right back down to 3.2. So the same thing. If you're not happy with like a 20, 30%, 40% drawdown with these, it's the same thing with Circle. So Circle is down a huge amount, right? And it broke its support. It's broken every single support that we've had. Right? I was hoping $8 would hold. It didn't hold. It's broken every support that it's had. And now it's below $2. So can I go down to 5 cents? I don't know. It's unlikely. But I mean, not impossible. Because there's no, I mean, there's no support here. I can't, there's no history, right? It's only like 3 days on each level. No good. But I don't know if this one ever recovers, to be honest with you. GCAT. GCAT I like. I like GigaCat because no, this is not the same one. GigaCat is on GigaCat is on yeah, it's on Solana. But it's not, this is not the symbol. GCAT was on base. Its market cap can't be 27,000, really? No. GigaChat. I know there's GigaChat, but then there's GigaCat. There it is. Yeah, it can't be. Really? It's 27,000? Oh my God. I wouldn't be selling this. I still like the project because I always thought the cat was cool. It's like a buff cat, but wouldn't be selling it. It's already down 99.9%. And then bundle. At least this one looks a little better. It's a little healthier. You have higher lows. And but the problem with this one just keeps rolling over. But you have a higher high and higher lows here. So if this holds support, this could be very interesting. This is interesting. This is one of the few that actually has secured higher highs and higher lows on the daily. And especially if this holds support, I would be much more bullish on it. So I definitely would not be holding this one. This is one of your the few strong ones. Oh, Ator. Is this one providing the most liquidity? There's no liquidity here. No. Ator we should be able to find. Yeah. Okay. Ator. This one's not terrible. I would say that this potentially could be considered another healthy project that's solving real problems. I mean, we had a lot of Ator back in the day, last year. I mean, it's just on higher lows on the monthly, back in November, back in February, back in June, and no, but it rebranded. I remember this. Yeah, it rebranded. I can't remember. What was it called? Look or One or something like that. I remember this. I just can't remember what was it called. It was rebranded to something. Ator protocol rebrand. Anyone. It's close. I said look. No, I said one. Okay, here's one. Yeah. I remember I looked at this last stream. Yeah, I looked at this last stream and I said if it doesn't hold $1, it's going to very much go down to 60. And there you go. It's hit 60 cents. So to me, there's some resistance here, but it did break out of the downtrend, which is what we wanted. So this could hopefully keep going. And then I would try to probably, depending on how the market conditions look in October, But if it breaks this, if it continues to break this and continues to break this dollar level, I would be much more interested in this. I don't think it's a time to sell this. Tomb. And if there's other coins you guys want me to look at, I'll look at them. Tomb, I don't think is going to be here. Tomb is too small. Tomb, yeah, it's this one. It's on Phantom. Yeah. Tomb. My goodness. Something's wrong with the data here. It couldn't have possibly been priced at 8 million. So just ignore that. Even ignoring that, I went from $4 to less than 0.05. So you're talking about 90%, 99% decline. Hitting a little bit of resistance here the last 3 months. Got $143 in volume. You can't sell this even if you wanted to. Oh, FOMO. Problem with FOMO, exploded today. Create coins without paying for gas. I mean, it's all trying to ride on the gravy train of, pump.fun and all of the other new pump.fun variants. It's having a nice little recovery today, though. And if this continues, you could argue that this is a nice break of a trend here. It's looking on the 4-hour. This could be interesting for sure. This could be interesting. I definitely would not be selling this now. This time to sell is gone. This is something interesting for me. I like this little boom. But who was it? How's the concentration here? These are probably all advisors. Advisors, founders, KOLs. So they don't seem to be selling, but if I look at the traders, this guy still has 1.2 million, 484,000. It doesn't seem like the KOLs seem to be dumping a lot. Interesting. Wouldn't be selling this right now. Ani. Is it this one? No, it's this one, I think, on Binance, right? Yeah. Huh. One of the few that actually look potentially intriguing here. I would be careful here. You might have had a rejection here. You might have experienced a rejection at that resistance level. And then on the higher time frame, we haven't broken it yet. And I would be very careful with this one. I would be careful. But hopefully this was the bottom, around 7 cents. You could argue that that was the bottom. Because that hit prior to the October boom. This one's definitely more interesting than the others. I wouldn't be selling this. I'd just be careful. If it breaks this downtrend, then it's going to go down to 7. If it doesn't hold 7, it's going to very likely hit 4. And that drop can happen overnight, as you can see. So, yes, be careful with that one. And then STX, like stacks. Yeah, that's not going to be here. STX. Oh, STX. STX is more intriguing to me too. It just keeps hitting. As long as it stays above 50 cents, I would be feeling pretty good about it. It's one of the few that actually broke its all-time highs. I had a lot of STX and I sold it all at the end of 2021, right below $2. Then kept pushing up to $3. But then I should have rebought. I had a feeling, such a strong urge to rebuy at like below 50 cents. And then it kept declining down to 25 cents. And then I just lost interest. But I definitely believe in the Bitcoin layer 2 slash side chains slash like, Lightning Network and Rootstack and all the other variants that they're doing, like Marion. And there's so many. Like Satoshi Virtual Machine, and there's like 7 other layer 2s that I've been farming and working on. These ones, right? Conflux and Botnix and Merlin and all those. So I definitely see this one doing well long term. I like that it broke the trend. I wonder now what's happening with it. Is this a retest similar to the other coins? It broke out of this trend, and is this a retest? Is it going to retest at this level around 1.3, and then it's off to the races, or is it going to take longer and it's just going to continue declining here? I wouldn't sell. Definitely would not be selling at this level. I would just be wanting to get some clarity and some confirmation on whether or not this break of the trend is sustained and successfully retest this level around 1.25. And if it does, then if you really want to be careful and you're sure there's going to be another crash, then you can trail your stop loss and then decide if you want to hold that position or not. Okay, Welsh. I don't think Welsh is. Oh yeah, it's on Mexi, so you can have some of that. But it's the problem with the same thing with STX, right? Welsh is not going to do well unless the entire narrative of Bitcoin layer 2 platforms rising in prominence and use and adoption, and I think they will. So I wouldn't be selling Welsh. I wouldn't be selling Omnom at this point. I mean, it already went down 90%. To me, yes, if you look at another chart, you can see it. It can absolutely go down further. I mean, it's not even here anymore. This is not right. This is not the right. It's not the same Welsh. This is Corgi. But you have to look on Bird Eye. So if I go to Bird Eye and then type in Welsh, you'll be able to. Why is it restricted to only? Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's not. This is going to be. It's not something that I would be particularly interested in selling at this point when it's already down so much, and I don't see it really doing that well until the meme coin craze and mania returns and STX returns as being like a prominent layer 2 blockchain. It's going to displace all the other competitors that we talked about on Bitcoin. And I think that narrative is going to continue to grow, especially now with the negative sentiment towards Ethereum and how they're mismanaging funds by the foundation, et cetera. So those are my views on it. Index is different. Index I wouldn't put in this group because Index is an index, right? And it's meant to be representative of the top 10 highest ranking digital assets ranked by market cap. And it's a cooperative based coin. Like I don't see this is only going to do well when the market is really hot. That's why it peaked in March, right? You could even argue that you just put everything you have in index. It's just the easiest way to get rapid exposure to the top 10 most valued coins, right? So I wouldn't sell this, like, being really no reason to. INJ is a lot stronger than a lot of these coins. INJ is already down more than 60 It's 60%. INJ is one of the ones that I've talked about a lot in the past because it's broken out of its trend many times, and it topped at 53. And it's one of the few that actually broke its prior all-time high, which is always to me is a very good early indication that in the future it's going to potentially do really well in the next market cycle. But at this point, when I'm looking at it on the weekly, definitely some concerning observations here. So I don't, it's almost entering oversold territory. Momentum is below zero, but it's rising since April. I would be careful with this one. Let me look at it on the daily, see if there's anything. See on the daily, it's hitting, it's breaking out, but it's hitting some resistance here around 20. So if this gets rejected here, which is likely because it was rejected in the past, I would be very careful with Injective. Fundamentally strong project. I have no concerns at all about the project. And then OP, I talked about before. OP, my views are the same. It's very similar chart to INJ. And then, yeah, the thing would say is it's all of these layer 1, layer 2 blockchains. If we don't have the strongest fundamentally established blockchains like Ethereum and Arbitrum and Optimism and ZK Sync doing well, then how can these other blockchains do well? They're not going to. So price-wise, not fundamentally, price-wise, right? And this one just keeps securing lower highs. That's something I would look to sell though. It already hit 19 cents. Maybe that was the bottom, but it could very, very likely go back to 16 cents, right? If this doesn't hold, and the next possible potential level of support is 20 cents. So another 50% down from where it is now, and it goes to 20 cents or 40% down. I wouldn't be selling these. This is not the time to be selling. I can tell you that much. And then Chlor AI, this one, same thing. It's the same exact problem, right? I like this project. It's one of the few that I actually fundamentally respect. I respect what they're trying to do. But to me, it doesn't make sense to be selling just yet. Let's see what it decides to do right at hitting resistance around 6.2 cents. RSI is starting to roll over. Momentum's above zero. And let's look at it on the 4-hour. So you might have been rejected here at 6 cents. It might have been rejected. So maybe that decision was already made for us right here on the 4-hour as of yesterday or 2 days ago. So I'd be careful with that. And then BBL. Oh, my BBL. So that's the longest price history. I think it was MEXC. Yeah. So to me, BBL has no price history. It's the problem with it. To me, it's still one of the strongest fundamentally sound projects. I wouldn't be selling this. Time to sell is gone. I've accumulated a lot of it. I don't want to accumulate anymore. If you don't have a position, this will definitely be a good time to start buying a little bit. It's way oversold. But again, it doesn't have much price history because it got released right at the market cycle, uptrend peak, right? So, but still has strong private equity and venture capitalist backers. It's still fundamentally sound. It has an actual working application. It had millions of users at one point. I think with the demise of Friendtech and demise of all of these decentralized social media applications and social chat applications, it's going to have a hard time recovering. But I'm going to hold it. I don't see any reason why I would sell at this point. And then Pepe on STX is, we're not going to be able to see it here. We're going to have to go to the trading terminals. We're going to have to use like Sat Screener if we're going to see all of these. And probably Gecko Terminal would have it. So this would have Welsh. And then, why is it looking like this now? Did they change it? No. Yeah. So there's Pepe Oz and STX20 Stacks token. Market cap is 44,000. Yeah. At this point, concentration is actually not that high. It's quite distributed. 1,200 holders. It's only 500 transactions. I just don't see the point of selling these ones when they're down so much. Same thing with Sheems. Like Sheems has had no volume whatsoever, but still the oldest, most established meme coin on Solana. And I don't see why it can't recover when the market gets hot again, you know? And yeah, I love this project. I like the community. I like what they were doing, but consistent sets of lower highs and lower lows. And it's very likely to hit this level again. It's not that far away from it, but I'm going to hold. It's really hard to find other meme coins that have survived 3+ years and actually have a thriving, growing community of 12,000 plus. And you have holders that you have so many holders of this coin as well, which to me is interesting, right? I like that. I like that it does that. And then if I go to Sol FM and you can see a proper distribution. Here. So look at the distribution of this. See, it wasn't bad. And many of these holders have been holding for a long time. I like that. I like to see those. Those are favorable conditions for me for holding these long-term ones. And then bag. Oh, this, yeah. I've been holding this. Disappointing. Should have just taken profit right after buying it. But yeah, I don't know. Does it make sense to sell these in my view? So I'm not selling now. I'm just holding it. I mean, yes, it can absolutely keep going down, but it's already down to 1 million. I don't know how much further down do we want it to go. And then Tia, like Celestia. Celestia, if you remember, when it did the token generation event and then airdrop for everybody, I told everybody to sell because the problem with this one, it's the same exact problem with all of them. They all post airdrops, they just end up collapsing. It's like really depressing, you know? So, okay. 5 billion volume. Ator, is anyone know? Yeah, Ator, yeah, exactly. Objective, I did. Harvest the maxis. Exactly. That's exactly it, brother. Okay. Celestia. It doesn't make sense to sell it at this point. I mean, to me, the world is multi-blockchain, inter-blockchain communication, inter-blockchain settlement. This is what Celestia, specializes in, is modular-based blockchains, plug-and-play functionality. They have a working product. They've gone live. They have a working mainnet. I don't see why there would be any reason to sell this. Inclining momentum, declining strength of the downtrend, entering oversold territory, not worth selling. But but we don't know the bottom. Could absolutely go right back to less than $4, less than $2, you know? So if you're not comfortable holding, don't hold, right? And then what is the next ones you had set up here? Calm. Calm is it this one? Communis? Yeah, it's gonna be the same story, guys. Like I think we've already done like 30 at this point. But let me it's gonna be the same story with all of them. I can tell you that much. Let me look at these. Schemes we did, Index, BBL, M0, EMC, Ample, Welsh. I've done most of these already. The same thing with NOT. So if I look at NOT, it's going to be the same as what I said with TIA and with all the other ones. See, they're all entering oversold. They're all having declining volume, declining strength of a trend, which is a weakening trend and a downside, potentially bottoming here. The time to sell is not now, right? September is not generally the time to sell. It's generally the time to at least start entering some positions, at least Bitcoin, and not be selling altcoins yet. But yeah, if you ask me if this can keep going down, absolutely. I mean, it can keep going down to below 0.004, right? And if I look at it on the 4-hour, that's not looking good, right? It's not looking good at all. So I just would be very careful, Connor, with those coins. So I've looked at all of them. The same thing with the wrap mist coin. The same thing with, you know, it's going to be the same story with this one, right? This is a narrative based around the fact that it was the first, you know, smart contract ERC20 token that was created prior to a wrapped version of that, right? Prior to the creation of like the first blockchain based coin, right? With utility. I wouldn't be selling this. I mean, it's hitting support. Maybe it hits support at 3 and it holds. If not, it's going to go right back down 50%. If you're not comfortable experiencing a 50% drawdown, then I wouldn't be holding this, obviously. But you also went down from 61 down to $1.80. You know, I mean, it's down 97%. Doesn't make sense to sell at this point. Okay. And you're very welcome, Andrew. I'm working to shifts today for the rest of this weekend. I'll watch the recording. Okay, no problem. Okay. How many are still here? All right, we still have some people. What else did you guys want me to go through? Any other questions? I wanted to go through the momentum trading engine, but I don't know if the people here are interested in that yet. But let me just show you a high level, and then I can create a tutorial later. I'll do a little crash course now. Okay. So what I taught is what I posted is a few days ago, I posted that we've been able to set up a fully automated end-to-end momentum trading engine execution service using non-KYC centralized exchanges. And the ones that work perfectly fine is if you use a platform called WunderTrading, and it works really well with FEMEX futures, PHEMEX, and it also works well with MEXC. Both are non-KYC. FEMEX futures doesn't have a limit. MEXC non-KYC includes $1,000 limit. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a lawyer. So I'm putting all the right disclosures in place to make sure that you make your own decisions on which platforms you can access under which jurisdictions and residency and citizenships and so forth. And you have to adhere to the terms. But WunderTrading is a platform that competes with 3 Commas and Bazaar and CoinExBot and AltTrading and CoinRule. And it is definitely a very reasonable option to consider to take in the alerts from the momentum trading engine and to execute them on FEMX futures or or MEXC. So, and the pricing is much more affordable. So that's what I like about it personally. And it works well. So if you look at their pricing, you need to have, you can use the free plan for one for generally trading, but you need the starter plan, um, which ends up only being like $3.47 a month. But it only gives you one signal bot. So signal bot is what you would need to use to be able to execute trades from the momentum trading engine. If you need 5, it's only $13.97. The other services are like $30 to $40 to $50 a month. This is only $13.97, and it's the only one that has support for FEMX. So that to me makes it like an easy decision to at least consider using it. So how it works is, what you do is, of course, you're getting the alerts from the momentum trading engine in TradingView. You're sending them to WunderTrading, and WunderTrading sends them to the centralized exchange that you wanted to execute on. So to me, in this example, it's FEMX, right? And so let's say that we have Bitcoin and we have a 1-hour normal candle momentum trading engine configuration that we want to set an alert for. All you do is, let me clean this up a little bit. All you do is go into the WunderTrading platform, and once you're logged in, you set up an exchange. So you connect your exchange to the actual app itself, and so you click Add Exchange, and then you choose which exchange you want it to actually be compatible with. And then, so you choose like FEMX or OKX or Kraken or Coinbase, etc. And FEMX has both spot and futures. And the beauty of MEXC is that you can use MEXC and you can actually short on MEXC spot as long as you have both base currencies. So if you have USDC and USDT and BTC, you can do BTC USDT. Or if you have some SOL, you can short SOL. If you have ETH, you can short ETH, right? So MEXC spot allows you to short as long as you have the compatible native currency of both sides of the trading pair, right? So USDT and USDC and the crypto itself that you're trying to long or short. So that's how I have it set up this way. And then this is just my example account. So once you create an account and you set it up, you go into Signal Bot, and all you do is you create a bot, and then so you say trading bots, and you say TradingView bot, say create, and you name it. So you say bot name, put a bot description if you want, choose which exchange you want to use, and which API from that exchange you want to use, choose what your time frame is. So 1 minute is fine because it's just basically probing for the price availability every minute. And then if you want to specify specific trading pairs, you want to do that. So you type in BTC USDT, that's your fine. And then you have it as a TradingView alert. You have it as a market type. Position size, you can set it to, I wouldn't set it to anything higher than 95% because you want to be able to have sufficient collateral for processing fees and exchange transmission fees. And then if you want to use leverage, you can, or can just keep it to 1x. And then you can also have max number of concurrent positions. You can have 2 or 3 trades running at the same time. You can have set take profits. You can have trailing stops if you want to say, I want it, once it's 3% in profit, trail and set the stop loss at 1% below that price, right? So you can set it to, however you want it to set it. And then you just create the bot. And then once you create the bot, this is how you set up the alerts. So let's set up the alerts. How you do it. So let's say I want to set it up for the 1-hour Bitcoin USDT. Right click, go to add alert, go into your drop down, click the momentum trading engine. So to me, it's the second one. So I have it set to the second one. Set it to order, do alert function calls only. And before you do this, one step makes it a lot easier, is you see that there's a message for entering longs, exiting longs, entering shorts, and exiting shorts. And then there's an alert message that you can include if you want, but you don't need to. Because the way we've set up the momentum trading engine, you don't need to use an actual alert message, because we have individual alert messages for longs, shorts, so forth. So what you do is, once you have a configuration that you like, copy the message from entering a long, go back, double click your configuration, scroll, go to the inputs, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see long entry, short entry, long exit, short exit. So you just paste it in, then go into long exit, copy the exit long, go back, paste it, and then short entry, same. So you're entering the short, paste it, and then you're exiting the short, paste it. So this is just, it's a separate machine language that you're sending to WunderTrading to let it know when to open long, when to close the long, when to open short, when to close the short. So then at the end of it, right now you're ready to create an alert. So you click add alert, and then go back, choose the engine that you want to choose, say order alert functions on only, and then go to notifications and change the webhook URL to this. So you can copy it and then go here and you can paste it in and then click create. Then make sure you create the actual bot and you say save and wait for the signal. And then make sure that you have enough money, and that's it. That's literally all you need to do. And then it'll open and close trades as you want it to. And if you have an open trade, go into positions, and then you'll see open trades here. So you see that it's entered. And more importantly, if you click this little downward arrow, it's very small, but if you click it, you'll see what the fill rate was, how much volume, whether or not you have some type of profit on loss on the actual position. So right now it's on an open short at 58,335, and you can start seeing the data fill in. So P&L is 0.002. You have everything here. And then more importantly, you can edit the actual trade, and you can sell any part of the position itself. And you can also set a trailing stop if you want. So you can say 0.01, 0.05, and then 0.01. You can just update the strategy. Or you can set a new stop loss, or you can set a take profits. You can configure everything yourself directly in the trade, or you can close it. So if you close it, it'll close automatically. So you don't have to rely on the momentum trading engine to exit positions. That is it. That is a fully automated, end-to-end, fully configurable momentum trading engine configuration using WunderTrading and using any form of centralized exchange. That's option one, right? That's option one. Option two is you can set up a fully automated end-to-end execution service from the momentum trading engine on your own virtual private server or on your local machine. So on your own local private server or on a virtual private server in the cloud, essentially, you're running your own custom application in the cloud. You can use a platform called Render. And how that looks, I'll show you, is, and you can also use 3 commas, by the way. 3 commas works perfectly fine as well. So the way you do it in 3 commas to do option one is you just go into 3 commas and then you click signal bot. And then once you have signal bot, and you don't have to pay for one signal bot, you can do it for free. So this is one signal bot, and all you do is you could start new bot, you say signal bot, and then you choose which one. So you say TradingView strategy, then you copy the webhook URL, say, yes, I've set the webhook URL. Then you choose which exchange you want to choose from. You choose which trading pair you want to use. And then you choose how much you want to invest. You choose what your name to be. Then you say next. Then it's going to give you a webhook message. All you need to do for this is you go back into TradingView and go into the alerts. And all you need to do for this is right click, go to add alert, go to the momentum trading engine. Same way we did before, but instead of doing order alerts, you can just do order fills. You can just paste in all that code that it gave you. And then go in and change the webhook URL to the 3 commas webhook URL, which is this. And then you say create. And then after a second, there it is. So this is your 3 commas fully automated signal bot. And then you create it. And that's it. And then you just create it and you run it. You can only have one running at a time if you're running on the free plan. But if you want to run more than one, then you can do it. The challenge with 3 commas and with Cornix and Mizar and so forth is that they don't have as much exchange support as many of the other platforms, but it just depends on what you're looking for. So those are options. Now, option 2, how to run it on your own. So what you can do is you can open an account on Render, and that's your own VPS. It's your own virtual private server. And what you would do is you would go in and set up a new web service. And once you have a new web service, you can say, I want to connect to a public GitHub repository. And the public GitHub repository is, and if you want to do this, I'll give you the code. So the public GitHub repository is this one. You click connect and give it a second. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing a Docker image and deploying a web service to a virtual private server hosted application that you're running. And then this way, you're able to execute your trades from the momentum trading engine on your own server using decentralized exchanges. So rather than relying on centralized exchanges, KYC and non-KYC, you can execute the trades on decentralized exchanges like DYDX, Perpetual Protocol, Bluefin, GMX, right? Those are the 3 of the 4 most prominent established decentralized exchanges. And there's going to be support for more, but right now this works perfectly fine. And only thing you have to remember is your region needs to be set to something other than US. So Singapore works fine. You need to make sure you have starter plan selected first. And then because you need to have persistent disk access, and you need access to something called like ephemeral file system. So essentially access to temporary files. And so not all VPS services are going to work. Like you're not going to be able to use DigitalOcean. There's ways obviously to do it, but you ideally would just use a VPS that gives you access to ephemeral file systems, or gives you access to a persistent disk access and access to temporary files. And those don't get purged, regularly. So starter is good. And then, which is only $7 a month. I mean, it's nothing. So then you have full control. So you have the private keys, you have access to funds, no one can access your funds. And then you also don't have to use this source code. You can fork the code and create your own. And then all you do you click advanced, you say add secret file, and you do add env. So this is like an environment file. This is the most secure way of doing it. And then you want to add, so let's say we're doing DYDX version 4. All you're going to do is you are basically going to paste in a code for DYDX, and you're going to put in your mnemonic code. So your mnemonic code is your secret passphrase. So that's literally your a dozen words. So let's say it's like test, house, apple, etc. That's your mnemonic code. And then another thing is you can also use different monitoring services that are available, like Sentry.io. So if you want to be notified anytime that your server is down, you can be notified immediately. So if there's any type of node problems or access to the application or access to your node and so forth, it'll notify you immediately. So you can use Sentry.io. So there's a way to do that. It's simple. It's not difficult at all. You literally just paste in your Sentry DNS field in the environment file. So it's not complicated. It's very simple. So if you need to do that, I can show you. And then once you're done, just click save, and then you add a disk. 1 gigabyte is more than you need. And then for the mount path, it should be /app/path. So that should be all you need. So it should be like this /app/data. That's your main mount path. And then depends on whether or not you want to auto deploy is fine. But do you want it to be synchronized? So every single time that there's a new update to the actual configuration or the repository, if you want it to be set, then say yes. Otherwise, no, and then you manually update it. And then you deploy. And then once you deploy, you essentially will have a disk, right? And then once you actually have your own Docker instance, right? You have your own node, you will be able to have access to any of those protocols. And all you do is copy your actual address. So it'll tell you once it's finished, once it's actually set up completely, you will have access to, let me show you what it shows you. But here, 1 second, just loading this. So your service is live. This will be the final confirmation that it's working correctly. And then you need to go in and you want to access everything. So all you do is go into that URL, paste it, and then do /accounts. And then once it's confirmed, if it says true, then it works. That is it. So those are the steps. If you want to do this, it's a lot more complicated and it's a lot more invasive and a lot more intense in terms of configuring and setting up your own private server, but you can do it. And once it's done, you have control. So if you want to use DYDX, then you have to make sure that you're in the right jurisdiction and you have access and so forth. But if you do have access to DYDX, then you would deposit the collateral. So you would deposit USDC collateral to DYDX, and I would use version 4. That's the perpetual futures. Do it like this. So go into this and then just follow their instructions to deposit USDC. It's not complicated at all. It's very easy. Once you deposit it, then you'll be good to go. Then you're good to trade. And then all you do is you are basically going to go in and you're going to go into TradingView, right? And you're going to set an alert. Same as we did before, but this time go into the momentum trading engine. Go to order fills only. This time, you're going to be pasting in this code, DYDX version 4, test strategy, BTC USD, whatever your size is, $10, $100. Usually the minimum is around $10 to $53. That's usually the minimum. Then you have order, position, and price. And then notifications, your webhook is going to be the webhook that we just had set up as the actual dedicated node. And then you create it. That's it. That is your strategy. So that's how you do it. All right, guys. We've been going on for a long time here. If there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to help. And it was a pleasure answering everyone's questions. All right. Love you all. Thank you so much. And again, if you have any problems or questions about option 1, option 2, I'm more than happy to help. All right. Take care. Have a good day.